Have a look at your program, and you'll see this young lady called Janelle going to sing for us. This young artist is a dynamic Nashville, and you'll know all about that if you like country music, dynamic Nashville recording artist from Alberta in Canada, who's making waves in the world of Christian music. Shortly after releasing her first solo album, New Day, Janelle sang the World Youth Day theme song for the Pope and close to 1 million people live at World Youth Day 2002 in Toronto. She's recently been the recipient of 4 Canadian Christian Music Awards, including Contemporary Christian Album of the Year, Female Artist of the Year, and 2 Best New Artist of the Year awards. Janelle and her band, 180, which consists of her husband Jason, and talented youth speaker and guitarist Michael Chasson from Texas, have been touring the world for the past 4 years, weaving their high-energy music, powerful testimonies, and Christ-centered message into an captivating and inspiring experience for young and old alike. Please give a warm welcome to Janelle and 180.
Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good. Well, I thought since you have been sitting down for such a long time that we would all stand up and just shake a leg a little bit. Oh, take a good stretch. Why don't you scratch the person's back on your left? And then on your right.
Yeah, wait, Janelle, here's my favorite. If everybody could do us a favor and shake the person's hand behind you real quick, that'd be awesome.
Well, now that we got you all moving, we'll let you take a seat. So my talk is entitled, Today is a New Day. And therefore, we're going to start it off with, I guess, the theme song for this talk, which is also New Day. Well, it's a new day, oh, it's a new time, and there's a new way. I'm gonna live my life, all the old has passed away, and the new has come. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Looking back on yesterday, there's so much I regret. Trying to put the past away, but it's so hard to forget. But then over the horizon, I see the dawn is drawing near, and I realize the sun did rise. Tomorrow's finally here. Well, it's a new day. Oh, it's a new time, and there's a new way. I'm gonna live my life. All the old has passed away, and the new has come. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Sometimes when I wake up, I think about the day before, and all the things that I've done, they keep knocking at my door. But I look outside my window at the glorious sunshine, and because I am a new creation, I can leave it all behind. Well, it's a new day, oh, it's a new time, and there's a new way. I'm gonna live my life, all the old has passed away, and the new has come. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Because of what He did for me, I'm not afraid. So let's come together now and sing, 'cause it's time to celebrate. Yeah. Well, it's a new day. Oh, it's a new time, and there's a new way. I'm gonna live my life. All the old has passed away, and the new has come. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Oh, and it's a new day. Oh, it's a new time. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Praise God, it's a brand new day. Thank you very much. Well, this afternoon, I would like to share with you a little bit of how God has worked in my life and how He's brought to me a new day. And so, I come from Alberta, Canada, like Philip said, and I come from a very, very small town. My town, there's about 1,000 people where I live, or where I grew up, I guess I could say. And the community was primarily French. So actually, French was my first language. I never learned English till I went to school. And in this small community of Laval, I went to a francophone school, which means all the subjects were taught in French, even English. Figure that one out. Well, so here I am, I go to school, and from grade 4 to grade 8, I was in this francophone school. And there was only 5 people in my class. So our teacher would arrive, some mornings and be like, all right, students, today we're going on a field trip. Everybody in my car. So, of course, you can imagine, being there was only 5 of us, we were very close. And also, there was, because kind of a bit of, I guess you could say, shelteredness or just naivety to the real world that was out there, because these 5 friends of mine, all our families went to church on Sunday, we all went to youth group on Friday night, and that was just life for us. But when it came to changing schools, when I got to be 14 years old and had to go to grade 9, the school only went to grade 8, and so I had to transfer schools, and I had to go to a big city school, which was an hour and a half away one way. So that means I was on the bus 3 hours a day to get to this new school from the time I was 14 on. And it was interesting because I had, like I said, been fairly sheltered, and I mean, the worst thing any of the 5 of us had ever tried was smoke a cigarette. God forbid. So, you can imagine my absolute shock when I get to school the first day, 14 years old, first day in grade 9, in this massive school, hundreds of students, and you have to understand that Laval, where I was from, is known for its alfalfa plant. So we harvest alfalfa, and then they make pellets for rabbits and, food for animals. And so, anyhow, I get to school the first day, and I'm thinking, small town girl, I'm a pretty nice person, I can probably make some friends, right? So I get to class, and I spot this guy in the far back of the classroom, and I walk up to him, and I say, hi, I'm Janelle, I'm from Laval, I'm new here. And he's like, oh yeah. And he looks at me, but when he looked at me, he wasn't really looking at me, he was kind of looking right past me. And I was like, I don't know, what's up with this guy? Why is he looking at me so weird? And then I started going, and I'm like, why does he smell like the alfalfa plant back home? Don't quite understand. Well, little did I know he was smoking something other than cigarettes. And it was a big shocker to me because I didn't actually realize that teenagers did this in real life. I had seen it on movies and stuff, but it hadn't really registered. And maybe I was naive, but at the same time, I think that might have been God's grace just keeping me sheltered from, that world. But I was faced very early on with a decision because at school, you can imagine, with this type of environment, and there was far worse things that were going on, that I wasn't the most popular person with my itinerary of youth groups on Friday nights, church functions and picnics and whatever, and my mom was very involved in youth ministry and the prayer group and whatever else. So, let's just say I wasn't popular. And it's not that people didn't like me. In fact, they liked hanging out with me, but I just didn't have friends that I could really share my heart with. And I became very, very lonely. And I felt like a real loner, honestly. And I can remember people just just bugging me and calling me names and stuff, and especially on the bus. And one night in particularly, I went home that night, and I was crying myself to sleep. My mom walked in, and she said, "Janelle, what's wrong?" And I said, "Mom," I had a real hard day at school today. I don't really want to talk about it." And she said, "No, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well," "I know I haven't really said too much, but school's really hard for me." She says, "Well, what, your subjects or something?" And I said, "No." I just don't have any friends." And she said, "Well, what, did you do anything for them not to like you?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." I said, "But I just don't think they understand why I love God, and honestly, I don't understand why they don't love him." And she said, "You know what, Janelle? You've been brought to that school for a reason. You have a choice to make. You can either stand up for Christ or you can stomp on him. What's your choice?" And even at 14 years old, friends, that stuck with me. And I said, "Well, Mom, of course I'm going to stand up for him. I'm not going to stomp on him." And she said, "Good. Now go and be that light." And so things didn't get better right off the bat, but slowly they improved because my heart had changed. And I soon saw that these people that weren't accepting me or loving me the way I thought I wanted to be loved or be popular, I realized that they were hurting. And so I said, "Lord, thank you for bringing me to this place and for allowing me to share with my friends." And so I realized that I wasn't going to be able to go through high school on my own. It wasn't going to be an easy battle, and so I started a prayer group on the bus. You have an hour and a half in the morning, why not? Got nothing better else to do. So it was just my friend and I, and we would pray the rosary in the morning. And then we started praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. And then we started praying intercessory prayers for people that were having exams, for our friends, for those that were sick. So pretty soon we had a whole hour and a half of prayer just stacked right up. And so it was only the two of us to begin with in that first year. But by the time I graduated, we had 75% of my bus praying with us. Pretty sweet, eh? And it was interesting because even those who didn't participate in our prayer group on the bus and, just kind of sat there in the back going, "You fanatics," they saw that we had a greater hope and we had a better ability to cope with the problems that were coming our way. From little things to final exams, to breakups with our boyfriends and our girlfriends, to, dealing with a friend that had committed suicide. And so I just want to share with you a song now called "The Mystery." And it's a song that just shares on how, even in this time of trial, I had to cling to Christ. He was my breath. He was my hope. He was the reason that I survived high school. And so this song is called "The Mystery." I approach the mystery of your love. I approach the mystery of your grace. I enter into the mystery of faith in you. I enter into your majesty. For in you I live, in you I move, in you I breathe my every breath. For in you I live, in you I Jesus, holy Jesus, praise you, Jesus. I approach the mystery of your love. I approach the mystery of your grace. I enter into the mystery of faith in you. I enter into your majesty. For in you I live, in you I move, in you I breathe my every breath. For in you I live, in you I move, in you I breathe my every breath. Jesus, holy Jesus, praise you, Jesus. Yes, you are Lord Jesus. And so for me, that just started a new day. I changed my perspective. I realized that they weren't after me, but in Christ, I was to be after them. And so I started this little prayer group on the bus, and those friends of mine grew to be very involved in the church as well, and actually a lot of them now are in ministry positions or have beautiful marriages and Catholic families, and it's just beautiful to see how when we journey with Our Lady and we journey with our Lord, how the fruits can be brought out in our lives. And thankfully, that 14th year of mine ended. It was a traumatic year for me, and so I turned 15, and it was really, I guess, a time where I just felt like the heavens opened up and God's just shone his light because I met the man of my dreams. Yeah. And so I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit because I'm going to tell that story in my talk tomorrow. But we're going to just speed up a couple years, and the man of my dreams became my husband. And so, July 10th, 1999, Jason and I got married. I was 19, he was 24, and yes, we were young. And so we took a year off. Both him and I had been in full-time music ministry prior to that, and we were honestly burnt out. It was time to just take a break. And so what we did was we bought a mobile home. We moved it onto a piece of land that his dad owned. And while we were there, we built a retreat center. And it was interesting because I had never cooked growing up just because I was, with his hour and a half drive all the time, I'd get home when the supper was already on the table. And so I had to learn how to cook. And so that was quite fun because I ended up cooking for all the crews and everything as well. But God had a bit of a sense of humor because, I don't know about you, but I like luxuries such as flushing toilets, running water. And when we moved to this mobile home on this piece of land, it was 20 minutes from what I call civilization. So we had to use a luggable loo, which is a 5-gallon pail with a toilet seat on it. And also, we had no power. And we had a generator, but you could only operate 1 light bulb or 2 light bulbs on it. So, no microwave oven, nothing like that. So we had a wood-burning stove, and I felt like Little House on the Prairie. It was absolutely wonderful. And God in his humor just made us appreciate one another because we were 4 hours away from family members. And we got to really just kind of gel as a couple and learn to live off the land. So it was an exciting time for us, in a time where Christ really stripped me and said, look, Janelle, I have prepared a new life for you, a life with your husband, but you have to give up everything that you thought marriage was going to be, all your expectations, and we're going to create something new, all 3 of us. And so I went, okay, Lord, I'm up for the adventure. Let's do it. So Jason, I have to explain, is a bit of a business-minded kind of guy. I am pretty pure artist. And so God knew what he was doing when he put us together, because we're a pretty good balance for one another. And when Jason and I started talking about what we wanted to do in the future, music came up. Both him and I have a passion for music. I grew up with a passion for music. At 4 years old, my parents discovered that I had this gift, and they said, Janelle, if you want to sing, we want you to sing for Jesus, because he gave you a gift, and now you have to share it. And at 4 years old, I'm like, oh, sure, Mom, that's cool. So they said, well, we want you to share it, and so you're going to start even at this age. And so I would go to the seniors' lodges on Sunday mornings after church, and they'd pull the piano bench out, and I would stand there with my little red dress and sing French heritage songs. And so when Jason and I were thinking about music, it was obvious that God had given me a talent, and he'd given him a talent. And for Jason, music was something that he studied in college. But little to my knowledge, I just thought he had a degree in music as far as performing arts, bass, and electric guitar. But he didn't mention he had a degree in music marketing, which is very handy. So, God put us on this adventure. And when we heard that World Youth Day 2002 was coming to Toronto, Canada, I was ecstatic, because I had gone to Paris in 1997, and it had had a huge impact on my life. And so in 2002, when it came to Toronto, we heard about it a year prior to that. And so Jason, he came up to me one day and he said, you know what, Janelle? He says, I think you have a shot at being the World Youth Day theme song singer. And I looked at him and I go, Pah! I said, I'm just small town girl from, Legal. What are they gonna think about me? I don't have anything to offer. And he said, you're not thinking outside the box. I said, what do you mean? He says, you got God stuck in this itsy-bitsy box saying, I'm just this girl that's going to do music ministry in the parish forever, He says, God has big plans for you. You have to dream big. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to dream big. That sounds really scary. But God knew what he was doing when he put us together. And so, in August of 2001, they had this, open invitation for people to write in songs to be the theme song and to submit applications for the World Youth Day theme song singer. So I got together with Jason and a couple other songwriters that we knew and rewrote a song called Alleluia. In Canada being bilingual, we wrote it in both French and English. And French being my first language, obviously I could sing in it. So we submitted it to the World Youth Day office, and we didn't hear from them for like 5 months. And I was like, okay, either they didn't like the song and they shelved it, or they didn't like the song and they're too scared to tell us, or they just forgot about it altogether. So in December 2001, out of the blue, we get this phone call from Father Tom Rosica, who is the priest that was put in charge of all of the World Youth Day events. He rings me up and he says, yes, is this Janelle Reinhart? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, we got your application. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I said, and?
he said, well, we didn't choose your song. And I went, oh. But we really do like your voice, and we chose a new song by Father Robert LaBelle, and we'd like you to sing it. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, only catch is, this was a Monday, you have to be here by Friday. It has to be submitted to the World Youth Day office on Saturday, and then launched for the media in a week. I'm like, oh my gosh. He says, so your tickets are in the mail, and we'll see you on Friday. I was like, my goodness, this guy, he seems to know what he's talking about. So off I went. I recorded the World Youth Day theme song in French. That was the part that I was to sing. And so recorded it, and then that just sent me on a whole snowball effect of events. 2 weeks later in January, a whole bunch of different media groups from across the world came together in a nice hotel in Toronto, and we launched it for the international media. And then in March, I got another phone call from Father Tom Rosica, and he goes, hey, Janelle, what are you doing the second week of March? And I'm like, I don't know, why, what you got in mind? He said, well, we're doing a bit of promotion for World Youth Day. Would you like to help us? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, anything I can do, I'd be more than happy to. He said, good, because your tickets for Rome are in the mail. I go, Rome? Oh, my goodness. He says, oh, yeah, did I forget to mention it was a European tour? I go, oh, yeah, just, a small mistake. So, off we went. We went to Paris, first of all. I sang for the Conference of Bishops there, and then at the Notre Dame Cathedral, which was unbelievable. And then we also met with different youth groups, and we just really encouraged the pilgrims to come and be with us in Canada. And then on we went to Rome. And when I was in Rome, the Holy Father had called together 40,000 young people in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. And he had made this celebration because he wanted to personally invite these young people to come and be with him in Toronto. He said, I will be with you. Won't you come and be with me? And so here we were in St. Peter's Square, 40,000 young people, and they had asked me to open up the ceremonies with the World Youth Day theme song. And so just to set the scenario a little bit, we have 3 stages in front of St. Peter's Basilica. We have this stage with the Vatican Symphony Orchestra, who is accompanying us. We have this stage with the Pope, the cardinals, and I call all his groupies. And then you have myself and some other artists that were to perform throughout the course of the evening. And so, being the one that's going to open the ceremonies, I was like, okay, gearing myself up for it, really excited. So I'm singing my song, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so the Pope's going to come out of the St. Peter's Basilica, he's going to sit in his little throne here, and then, I can sing properly instead of looking at him and bawling my eyes out. So I come up, I'm singing my song, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see the Holy Father in his Pope-mobile doing the rounds in the crowds. I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, Janelle, just get through the song. Everything's going to be fine. So he's, going around. And there was a ramp just in front of me. And go figure, the Pope comes right, literally this close from me. And he looks at me and he goes. And I was like, oh, that's him. And so I was like, oh, just get through the song, Janelle, you're going to be okay. So thankfully, I finished the song. And then, of course, it was a beautiful ceremony and very, very moving for me. Like I said, I cried all night just because I could not believe God's goodness that here I was in Rome, in front of all these people, in the presence of the Pope, singing, the World Youth Day theme song, and just, it was unbelievable. And so here I am, I'm, kind of at the end of the night, recollecting myself, gathering my stuff, and I saw that there was about 40 people that had been given special permission to meet the Holy Father, and so they were all lined up and doing their thing, and I'm thinking to myself, here I am in St. Peter's Square, and what would I give to be able to meet the Pope? But I know it's never going to happen, so I'll just pick up my stuff and go. And then, Father Tom Rosica, I see him out of the corner of my eye, and he's bolting for me. He's like, Janelle! Janelle! And I look at him, because he's with the Pope's groupies, right, on the main stage. And I look at him, and he's like, look at your pass. And we all had these passes around our necks for security purposes. And so I'm looking at my pass, and I'm like, all in Italian, don't understand a thing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I thought this let me go to the loo, but maybe it's something more. So I asked the guy beside me, and he says, that's a pass to meet the Pope. I'm like, you're joking. So I get in line. He's like, hurry up, get in line. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, compose yourself. And then I'm walking, and I'm almost there, and I go, oh. I'm like, oh, Janelle, think of something intelligent to say. So, oh my goodness. So I'm like, okay. So I'm walking, composing myself, and I kneel before him, and I kiss his ring as is customary. And when I looked up at him, I went, and so he was so amazing. He was so gentle. He just took my head into his hands, and he laid my head on his chest and started stroking my hair, going, shh. And I'm like, and so I'm bawling in his lap, and the cardinal nearby is like, yes, this is Janelle Reinhart. She'll be singing for you the World Youth Day theme song in Toronto. And I'm thinking to myself, real good first impression. But as I knelt before him, and I composed myself eventually, and I pulled away from him, and I stood there, my hand cradling his cheek in his mine, I just looked at him, and I remember thinking, this man has lived his life to the fullest. He has made every moment count, not only in this life, but in the life to come. And I remember praying in my heart, Lord, how can I live my life that way? Show me. And I remember looking into his eyes and thinking, this is an old, frail man. And yet, he is probably the person that the Lord has used the most in the 20th century. He attracts young people from around the world, and yet he would be considered, in this world, an invalid. And so I looked at him, and it deeply impressed my heart. And I heard in the quiet of my spirit, Janelle, all you have to do is look at me, and I will look at you, and together we will do great things. And Jesus spoke to my heart that day through our Holy Father. And so the Holy Father kissed my head, and he blessed me. And then the security guard nearby is tapping me on the shoulder like, move it, lady. Time's up. So I slowly got up, much to my dismay. And I knelt before him again, and I whispered in his ear, Je t'aime, which means I love you. And he looked at me, and he kissed my forehead again. And then off I was. And I was walking away, and, I'm like, biggest moment of my life. And just trying to get over it and absorb all that had happened. And my friend, Father Dennis, who was with us, comes up to me, and he's like, Janelle, what were you doing? And I'm like, what? He's like, oh, you had me so scared. I said, well, why? What did I do? He said, oh, I thought you were going to get black mascara all over the Pope's white garments. Okay, so as you can see, that beautiful moment had its funny moments too. But indeed, it impressed me, and it made me think that every decision that I make here on this earth either leads me closer to heaven or further away from it. And every morning, every new day, we have to make that choice. And our Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, has led the way. He is calling us to holiness. And so I'd just like to sing for you the chorus of the World Youth Day theme song, Light of the World. The light of the world, the salt of the earth, we scatter the darkness when love becomes our way. The light of the world, Christ is our light. We shine with His brightness, the reflection of His light from day to day. And so, if you would like to see that story again and look at the pictures and stuff, it's actually on my CD. If you pop it in your computer, it'll all come up on the computer. So it's both a music CD and an interactive CD-ROM. And also, tomorrow, Jason and I will be giving our courtship testimony. So we ask you to come and be a part of that. And Jason was the one on my right here. And this is Michael. We like to keep that clear because a lot of people think Mike's my husband too or something. This one's the right one. So thank you very much, and God bless you. Have a good afternoon.